Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for February 28th, 2024. Well, as we wind down this month, boy, we've had quite an interesting market, and we've got a wild and crazy week yet ahead of us with some data that could move us substantially. But before we take a look at that, how about we take a look at what happened overnight? First off, we had Asian markets mostly down overnight. Only Korea was up a little bit. We had a pretty substantial sell-off in Hong Kong, down 1.51%, $263. And Shanghai slipped back below that key 3,000 area, dropping 1.91% yesterday. So still a little bit of uncertainty coming in there in the Asian markets. If we take a look at European markets here this morning, we have the DAX just slightly up 0.18%. But the rest of European markets are lower at this morning. However, somewhat on the cautious look here this morning. Here in the U.S., we are down across the board here today, showing a little bit of bearishness, but we are starting to rally here in the pre-market like we normally do. We've been every day has been a morning pump up in the future. So I wouldn't rule out the possibility that we could be higher here later on as they try to pump that back up and keep everyone buying. Let's take a look at oil. Oil was nicely up yesterday, but is pulling back today. We've got oil down 74 cents a barrel. Brent is down 67 cents a barrel, and natural gas is just a tiny bit lower this morning as well. So feeling a little bit of pressure there. Our bonds this morning, our bonds have also pulled back just a little bit from yesterday's highs. The 2-year right now is coming in at 4.68%, and the 10-year is coming in at 4.26%. 30-year is at 4.42. So we still have quite an inversion there on the 210s. We'll want to be watching that closely, particularly with the inflation data that'll be coming up here later this week. And then if we were to kind of take a look at what is happening around the world here in the markets, just that little bit of uncertainty coming in as we head into these data points. I think the market is just in a little bit of a hesitation here right now, trying to decide, are these numbers going to be good enough, or are we really starting to see the market, the indications in the market turn over like we saw yesterday in the big miss on our durable goods numbers? Let's take a look at our charts and see if we can gain some information about how we might want to approach the market for today. But before we do that, guys, if we could just settle in, buckle up, and let's get ready for the Wednesday edition, the Hump Day edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these charts, try to shake off a little bit of bias and see what they show us here in the market. Well, if you take a look at the diamonds here, you can certainly see we have a pattern that is very, very bullish and may certainly play out for an upside move here in the market. Notice we're pulling back here to this support and pulling back here to this trend. So we're coming into that critical area here where we're going to make a decision, and today's data may certainly provide us that catalyst, whether we're going to push on up from here. This would be a beautiful potential entry pattern if the bulls push up to the upside right off of that support and trend here in the chart. So as you can see, if the bulls find inspiration, then there is every reason to believe we could start pushing up. And then we're going to be looking at some of these levels across in here for those targets. But it wouldn't be all that much of a stretch the way the market has been moving to see that possibility of us moving up through here and blue sky highs. However, if that data is not so good today and the bears decide to attack, the bears seem to be getting just a little bit more feisty, not in any way, shape, or form in control, but a little bit more feisty here in the market. And that possibility, if the data comes in bad and we drop down below that support, a drop through here could really create a fairly significant point move down to this next level of price support in the chart, and perhaps even lower if it really started kicking off. So we'll want to watch that carefully, and of course breaking of the trend in here would raise maybe just a little bit of concern in the market, so watch that closely. If we take a look at our SPY, also setting up beautifully for an upside potential move if the data supports it. We've popped up, we've rested back here toward the trend. All this data coming yet this week could certainly, and it may not happen today, but maybe by Friday, if we get good core PCE numbers, could push us right back up and we continue that uptrend. And you can see it really wouldn't be a major reach for us to be breaking through resistance up here and having more all-time highs in the SPY coming into play. Trend is in a good position here as well to add to that potential support in the chart. The complication comes in if those bears get any whiff of weakness here in the market, because we've so extended this market, we've so elevated every valuation in the market. We have a problem where we could move sharply lower, and we could do it in a quick way. So if we were to fail through this area of support, if the bears get going, that's where things could get a little bit janky for a little while. Dropping down through here, we might slip that trend, and you can see there's not really good price support in this chart anywhere until we're kind of pushing down into here. So that would be a pretty big point move in the chart if those bears were to get going there on the SPY, and that would really shake some confidence here. Remember, with so many people long big tech right now, if we start to sell, you could probably see a run for the door all at once, meaning that we could have that really big point move in the market if fear crops up here all of a sudden. And then if we take a look at our QQQ kind of all depends on where you mark up this chart. You can see here in QQQ, there's probably the more predominant trend where we pick up more of those support areas in the chart, but perhaps we're coming into another little upside trend here with this resting pattern back. So looking at that chart, you can see that very real possibility, I think, in here that we could find some support right in here. And if that data is good here the rest of the week, we could hold in this bullish pattern here and push right on higher. It wouldn't take much to hit all-time highs here in the QQQ if that data is good. If that data happens to be bad, however, well, just notice we have this big gap here in that chart. And if we fall through this support, there is a possibility of a big point move where we could drop pretty hard into that gap. Now, one saving grace would be a little bit of price support right in there that could catch us before we quite fill that gap. And then, of course, we have more price support in the chart right in there on that gap fill. So we'll want to watch that pretty closely, and it can be a pretty quick or nasty little sell-off if those bears were to get some data here to push it. So stay long this trend. Moral of the story here, stay long this trend, but be prepared for that possibility of that shift should the data engage those bears a bit more. And then if we take a look at our IWM, IWM has been rallying up nicely, holding up in this trend. Yesterday was the strongest of the indexes. You can see we're getting a bit of a pullback, and we've had this tendency in here. We've been pushing up into this area of the chart, and then we've been running into some resistance. So this is going to be kind of a critical area here for IWM. Will we find enough energy in the data to maybe push us on through this resistance here finally, and then maybe pushing us up to attack resistance up here? Let me pull this back. This resistance goes way back, and there is a big level of price resistance right there in the chart. So this is going to be a kind of a critical test if we have enough energy to push up through that area, start banging through, and maybe test this area up here. If the bears, however, find inspiration and we end up rejecting this area once again, I just want to say, if we get that big move in the QQQ or the SPY to the downside, well, we know how quickly IWM can fall. We've seen it here recently where we just get a little bit of shaky and we fall pretty hard. There is price support, of course, right in here, so we could gain some support if we pull down in here, and if the bulls find enough data, bouncing off of that sure seems possible. So that gives us that hope that we could continue to push on up and break through that resistance. However, if that were to fail here, if we push down below here, breaking that trend can be kind of critical here for IWM, and I would see that potential, if that occurred, some pretty substantial point moves to the downside here in the Russell. So once again, stay with the trend, but be prepared. Make sure you're looking at this chart carefully, making sure that you're having a plan to protect your capital. Let's take a look at our VIX. Our VIX ended up pulling back yesterday. We started up just a little bit, had a little spinning top doji in there, but then as we rallied toward the end of the day, that softened here just a bit, but we're still hanging in there around that 13.5 handles in the VIX. Not really showing any fear here, but you will want to notice overall we've just been moving this up ever so slightly. So if we were to get some bearish data here today, then we certainly couldn't rule out that possibility that we start to see some fear creeping back up here in the VIX. Watch that carefully. A lot of overconfidence, I think, in the market, and that overconfidence could cause us some pain and suffering if the bears get going. Now, if the bulls find good information here today, then that's going to change everything pretty quickly. We could drop this right back down here into these lower areas of the VIX, kind of in some complacency areas, honestly, here in the VIX. So watch that carefully. I do expect some pretty big moves over the next few days here of trading. If we take a look at our T2122, remember T2122 is the 4-week new high, new low ratio, and we did get a nice little push to the upside yesterday, reversing the day before, but we didn't really gain any ground overall. So we'll want to watch that carefully here. If the bulls find inspiration today, we certainly have that opportunity that they could push on through to the upside in that chart. If the bears were to find inspiration here today, well, we've opened a very big opportunity for those bears, and that's why I'm just raising that caution. If the bears find that inspiration, we could have a big point move to the downside all at once, as everyone that's long and everyone that's been chasing stocks higher here, they will all be moving to close those positions out and protect their capital all at once if we have a little bearish move here in the market. So be careful here, be watching for that possibility. Let's take a look at our T2108. T2108, percentage of stocks above the 40-day. We did get an improvement in that yesterday, moving back up, and look at there. back above 50% here in that chart. But one thing you do want to notice, and you'll have to admit, we've been pretty range bound here. We've got some resistance above, we've got support below in this chart, so we'll want to be watching this pretty closely here today. This could whipsaw in any direction in that chart. So not really getting, that big warm and fuzzy that everything is copacetic here in the market quite now in that T2108. T2107 is pretty much the same. We have a range bound situation here in the chart. We are holding up here pretty well, 54% of the stocks, but been stuck in this little range bound move. We did have an improvement in there yesterday back to the middle of that range. So this has that potential to swing either direction. What it looks like to me is the market is just cautious and hesitating heading into these numbers because they are not absolutely sure what the market is going to do from here. And then if we take a look at our T2101, T2101 did hook up just a little bit yesterday with a little bit of increase in breadth, but I got to tell you, it really wasn't enough to be impressive at all. We didn't even come back through some of these areas of resistance in the chart. Couldn't get back up through there. So we'll want to watch that pretty closely. If this were to start to increase on a bearish move, meaning that big sell-off that could occur if the numbers are bad, then that would be one of those catalysts that could raise that panic level here in the market as those bears come in and attack. If it happens to be really good data today, then what we want to see as bulls in the market, we want to see this also really surging back up on that next buy wave in the market if the data provides that catalyst to the upside. Now let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. In our economic calendar, well, we've got an interesting day ahead of us here on that calendar. As you can see, we've got mortgage applications here first thing this morning, but probably more importantly is we've got a GDP number, and it would seem to me that the consensus estimates here on this are just punting. They're not sure what's going on here. So the consensus is saying that everything stays flat. I don't know. Looking at that durable goods numbers yesterday, some of the issues we've been seeing in the PPI and CPI, and issues that we've been hearing of the consumer slowing down, there is a pretty good chance that these numbers will not be accurate here today. I can't tell you if they will be bullish or bearish, but I think there's a pretty good chance of a miss in this GDP number, either to the upside or the downside. So watch that number carefully this morning here at 8:30 a.m. After that, we've got international trade. They're looking at, consensus is suggesting a negative 88.1, so an increase over the prior revised. On that, we'll want to watch that pretty carefully here as well. Certainly a market mover. We're going to have retail inventories and wholesale inventories to be paying attention to. They're suggesting wholesale inventories coming in at 0.1, which would be an improvement over the 0.4. So watch that careful. And then if we take a look, we've got petroleum status here today. That'll be interesting with all the fluctuation that we've seen. And there is some talk that OPEC may be cutting production again. So we'll want to watch that carefully here as that number comes out. Survey of business inventories will be in there. We've got a 4-month bond auction, and then we got a whole bunch of Fed speak here this afternoon, so be prepared for that. Looking into Thursday, we're going to have jobless claims coming in, personal incomes and outlays. That's that core PCE number that we're going to be wanting to pay attention to. That's the Fed's favorite number, so be prepared for that on Thursday. And then Chicago PMI, pending home sales, natural gas, and then what we normally have, some Fed speakers and Fed balance sheet here on Thursday. So be prepared for tomorrow, another round of data first thing in the morning that could be substantial. Let's take a look at our earnings calendar here for today. And our earnings calendar, fairly busy because there will be no blog today. And I apologize, guys, just because I have been so darn slow at getting things done, hobbling around without a foot. There won't be a blog. But if you take a screenshot of this, this will be the notable earnings for today. So Salesforce is in there. We'll need to be paying attention to that. AP in there. We've got AI that will be reporting. We know anything that says AI has got to go higher, right? So watch that one. DY is in here reporting. We've got GoGo in here. We've got Moderna will be in there. Monster. A beverage will be in here reporting. So keep an eye on all of these stocks here today. Could be a lot of volatility, particularly if you happen to be in some of those trades here today. So watch those careful. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, guys, if you can do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube. Also click that bell icon when it pops up so you're notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, and that would be click that thumbs up button, leave that brief comment. That helps the channel to continue to grow. Thank you so much to everyone who does do that. I'm back on task here answering those, so I truly do appreciate it. All the kind support. Remember, guys, you can also help support the channel if you choose to by just sharing this video on your social media feed. I definitely appreciate that. And then, of course, there is that option where you can support the channel with the Buy Me a Coffee link just below the title of the video if you want to support just a little bit in the channel. Of course, we would love to have you come over and take a look at us at Right Way Options and see if we can help you with your trading and improve some of your trading results by being part of the team. Let's take a look at some stocks setting up, and remember, these aren't recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence, be very careful here in the market, and make sure that you are not blindly following anyone else's trade idea. Follow your risk tolerance and your trading rules. First off, let's take a look at a few different things here today that are kind of interesting. CVS has been in this really nice, tight consolidation. We're sliding out here toward this trend. Now, some healthcare has struggled here quite a bit. Some healthcare has done pretty well. So watching this closely for that opportunity, if we can find that bullish inspiration in the market, I'd look for that potential pop right in there and a continuation of that trend to the upside. So keep CVS on a list. Watch that closely. Now, if we look at another healthcare yesterday, UNH, man, oh man, it got hammered hard. All of a sudden, we popped right up into this downtrend, and this is, by the way, the best place to look for a short trade. Pushed up against a downtrend. And boy, did it get hammered yesterday, pushing it down, breaking some support in the chart. Now, I wouldn't want to chase this short to the downside at the moment. Let's let this settle out and even rally back, and then look for your opportunity to take a short here in UNH. This was a pretty ugly sell-off here, and you can see failing here once again at its 50-day moving average and dropping straight into its 200-day moving average all at once. So not the best of signs there for United Healthcare. Watch that one closely. Take a look at Tractor Supply. This is one that you guys know that I had talked about in the morning prep. There was that alert in the chart. We popped through and then just rested over to the trend. and then just took off. Now, one of the things that I would be a little bit worried about here on Tractile Supply at the moment is that we're stretching up here to the top side of that channel. We may be coming to an end on that move, but that doesn't mean this chart is bad. What I would do is I would just wait for the next potential entry in the trade. Look for that little resting pullback, consolidation in the market. If you're long that trade, want to stay long that trade, I'd sell some covered calls about now on that trade to hedge that position and watch that just rest, come back and see if we can hold on to this trend to continue that upside move in the market. Looking pretty darn good overall. Really, really strong. Let's take a look at a few other places here. We've got a mix of things going on here in the market. If we take a look at Apple, you guys know I've been talking about Apple, this possible head and shoulders top in here. The problem that we are having with that. Yesterday had a nice little bounce off of this next neckline trying to hold in here on that chart, but you still have to recognize the fact that we are still downtrending here. So any failure here that drops us down through there could be a substantial downside move coming here in Apple. So watch that carefully. If you want this to be a bullish trade, then what I would do is I would wait for this to push through that downtrend here in the chart, try to hold that higher low, and then look for that opportunity that can start an upside trend here in the chart. So keep an eye on Apple. If we take a look at MU, big surging move, gaps left behind like crazy, just rallying strongly here to the upside, breaking through some resistance. Now it's going to be critical that we hold up here for that next upside opportunity. So if this can hang in this area, hold this higher low in here, that would be pretty good setup for that next upside move. I think it would also be possible that it could slip back into this area and still hold that higher low for that next upside move here in the chart. Keep an eye on MU. If we happen to slip though and fail right back down and start filling those gaps, well, we could be looking at a story completely different here in that chart. AVGO has been holding in here. Popped above that resistance in the chart. Nice little resting consolidation. So I would say we have a pretty good opportunity that we would hold in here if our data is good and inspires those bulls higher. Then I'd be watching for that next potential move here in AVGO back to the upside. Certainly a possibility that that could be the case. Now, some of that mix that we're seeing here in the market, Microsoft just continuing to show a little bit of weakness here in the market. Nothing terrible, but you can see this is a possible lower high, and we're drifting back here in an attempt maybe to fill this gap. It's going to be really important for Microsoft to hold on to that gap, because here you got to squint maybe just a little bit. It's a messy chart, but there is that possibility of a head and shoulders starting to show up in here. So if this support area does not hold in the chart, there again we have that neckline problem. Obviously we've given up this trend, and our new trend has to be the beginning of the new trend because of the lower high. If it were to make the lower low, it confirms that downtrend here in the market. So a little bit of back and forth here in some of these charts, showing that concern. We also have a little bit of concern maybe showing up here in Amazon, where we pushed up here, we almost like a double top here in the chart. We did squeak out a little tiny bit of a new high in that chart, and now we're kind of fading back. Now if we can hold this support in here, I think we're going to be golden. If we do, we can hold that support, push back up, and there resume the upside trend. But if that were to slip back down below this support level here in the chart, then I'd be starting to worry about that possibility of the next lower high and the beginning of a potential downtrend here in Amazon. So watch that one pretty closely as well. So there's a lot of potential things that could happen in the market. We've squeezed so many of these charts up to these high levels, and we're starting to see that little bit of fade here in some of these. It may not be critical yet, but we'll want to be careful, because I think, as I said before, that if we start to sell, there will be a rush to close out trades and protect themselves for a sell-off in the market that could be a little bit harsh, particularly if that inflation data continues to show us a problem with these rates. So with that, everyone, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. Thank you so much for being here. Hope you got something out of the video today. I truly do. Wish you all of the best, and I'll see you right back here bright and early Thursday morning. Take care.